friends, Kobe.
Yeah, right. Now, real friends. Everybody, my beautiful wife is joined too. Hello, Siobhan.
Hi, Siobhan.
Good. And first off, good morning to you, Mrs. Elisa Buckner. How are you?
I'm doing great. I got my morning jog in and I'm here with family, so I'm doing good.
Good. You're a jogger. Okay. All right. And I see some pretty good flags in the background. HBCUs up there, Xavier
Yeah,
and
Xavier and Hampton, my alma mater.
all right. So we getting ready to get going, everybody. Mrs. Elisa Buckner is the founder of Access to Admission. I tend to want to put the S on the end of that, and thank you for correcting me. You have nearly 20 years in the college admissions or college coaching space. You have made it your life work to help families basically change their legacy by making college more accessible and affordable. And I appreciate you for that, first off. Sounds like you have a computer science background and also a school counselor degree.
Yes, yes.
And, and a couple metrics that I found to be amazing about what you're doing. First off, 100% of your students are accepted into a university. 90% of them come from, I like to say, ignored communities.
Mm.
And you have a 90% college retention rate. So these kids are, I'm sorry, should I say these young adults are finishing, and that's amazing. So
Well,
first,
thank
go
you
ahead.
for that. I do want to make one correction. Since COVID, we have gone down a little bit on our retention. So there was an impact of retention, but the other metrics are absolutely correct. 100% to 4-year colleges accepted. And we are talking about a 4-year graduation rate where most things are noted as a 6-year. So we're actually trying to press that 4-year graduation rate. And we do beat all metrics for ignored communities on that. So yes.
That's amazing. That's so amazing. And I want, if you're on this live right now, I just want to make sure this call, this chat is for everyone. You might not know it right now at this point. If you know a family, if you know a friend, send this to them. Press that button down at the bottom where it's the arrow and send it off to those people so they can join, because Elisa's getting ready to drop some knowledge on us. And this stuff is amazing, the knowledge that she has and the things that she can impart with us. So it's so great to have you again. It seems like your business is pretty much the quintessential service business model. And by that, I wanted to know, first off, what motivated you to jump into such a meaningful business?
Right. Yeah. So, to your point, I was a computer science major and served as a server-side software developer for the Department of Defense and other companies in the DC area. And a friend of mine told me about an organization called Mission Year, where students volunteered for a city, in a city, and they just lived in a community, and they just were good neighbors. And so that is what brought me to Atlanta, the Atlanta area. And in my service for a year, I just walked to the local high school because it was walking distance to my home. And part of our initiative was just to figure out what was needed in the community where we were placed. And so it was an urban inner city community in Atlanta. And I was allowed to walk into the classrooms and ask the students, hey, how do you want to go to college? And almost every time, all the students would raise their hands and say yes. Like, it's never been a problem of students really wanting to go to college. I have not seen that. The motivation has been amongst young people to go for a very long time. But then when I kind of compared like what was happening with their grades and what was happening with actually getting into college, I saw that there was a disconnect, or as you would put it, maybe some of those desires were ignored and those aspirations were ignored. And so I just fell in love with helping students get to where they want to go, which is they want to succeed and they want to go to college and have those experiences. And so I started that journey in 2001.
That's amazing. I was talking with Siobhan this morning, who's here on the call, and she mentioned that I believe the 75% of physicians are from like the top 1% of affluent households. And she can correct me, I might have missed some of that. But it definitely made me think, and we talked about it a little bit more. But basically, in order for us to change lives beyond where we sit right now, there's this firewall for us, and this firewall with our conversation right now is higher learning, college.
Mm-hmm.
So if you know that what you do professionally translates into better lives for many other people out there, in the case of healthcare, you can't become a doctor. You can't become a Black female doctor unless you have individuals and businesses that are run by people like you to help people get to college and help them get through college and become whoever they see themselves becoming in the future. So that's amazing. I appreciate you for that. I wanted to ask you something else, but you've already answered it. So yeah, you were inspired by. Fine. That's great. So the process of applying to college and matriculating into university and subsequently graduating is challenging for so many. What are some of the areas that families that you're seeing need the most help with?
Resources is always a big one, and so resources can be financial, of course, and then also other things, just understanding who to contact when there's issues and things like that. When I first started in this business, and in this work even, I was successful with getting students to top schools, but I was ignorant to the fact that once we got them there, that they were still struggling and really hurting on PWIs and even sometimes on HBCU campuses, because our students, the students that I serve specifically, weren't used to asking for help. Whereas students from those affluent neighborhoods that go to those top boarding schools are very, very comfortable walking into their professor's office, going to coffee with their professor, having conversation outside of the classroom. And our students weren't, and they're used to having tutors and resources available to them by the parents from a very early age. And so when our students felt like they needed to ask for help or get a tutor, it did something different to them. It made them feel like they didn't belong on the campus and they were really struggling. And I realized that I have a student that is doing very well right now at Microsoft, and I contacted him. He went to Notre Dame. He got a full tuition scholarship. And I said, I never checked in on you. How are you doing when you were in school? And he said it was horrible. It was a horrible experience for him. He graduated, he persevered. We celebrate him. He's doing great now. But I thought that the work was just getting students in, and I didn't really realize that there was much more work that needed to be done with students actually having healthy, wholesome experiences in college. And so that's really some more of the work that I've been doing in the last 5 years has been really more around that with students. So often you'd be surprised when students actually show up to school, it's really usually less than $6,000 that keeps them from moving forward from one semester to the next. Like sometimes we might think it's $100,000 or $50,000, but usually it's less than $6,000 that would keep a student from continuing on if it's a financial burden. It could be something like going to Stanford and everybody's riding bikes, and a student from a city on the other side of the country didn't know that and doesn't have the resources to go and buy a bike. And so it's the belonging piece and understanding the culture of the college that they are on. And so there's a lot of work around that. So doing the work for match and what is a good fit and all that good stuff. It goes much more beyond resources and money, but some of that is just exposure as well.
The person that you were working with that ended up going to Notre Dame, did they mention anything like what made it horrible? Just curious about that.
Yeah, I think that particularly for students of color, if you've I'm from Oregon. So I'm from Portland, Oregon, do I have to say it, guys? Like that's a community that's predominantly white. So for me, I couldn't wait to go to Hampton University and go to an HBCU because I couldn't wait for that experience. I grew up watching A Different World. I wanted to go, right? I had an older brother that was 9 years older than me. He went to Clark Atlanta. And so I got to see, I went to the Clark campus in the summer. So I was exposed to that. But if you can imagine, this student came from Atlanta, which is not a predominantly white community, and went to Notre Dame because it was a great school, a great name. Everyone told him he should go. And we were excited for him. But I don't know that there was really any support given on my end or in preparing him for what that transition would look like going to a PWI. And so I'm not in the business of saying that Black students should only go to HBCUs, and I'm not in the business of saying that PWIs are the best route to go either. But I do think that we need to acknowledge that there's some additional research, just like all HBCUs aren't the same, all PWIs aren't the same. And so we definitely need to make sure that that student is supported with community. You know, luckily for the school, some of the schools I work with now, the resources that I've had over in the years, I can say, hey, I can call someone and say, hey, I have a student that is going to Notre Dame. Can you check in on them? Where I didn't even look for that years ago to see if there was someone that could check in on the ground. Right now, my team, I have 2 alumni persistence coaches, and their whole job all year is to fly around to campuses and check in person with students in their first and second year of college, to lay eyes on them and to support them and see how they're doing. And so when you're talking about students that are first generation of college, their parents aren't necessarily always going to be able to jump on a plane and go visit them and check in with them. But that's something that we are able to do with some of our clients. So
That's phenomenal. Yeah, and I think that would have of course made a difference during my college years. There was many students that I started off the first year with that all of a sudden disappeared sometimes during the middle of the year or didn't come back for the second year. I myself was one of them. I got a letter at home during a holiday break, and I had a tough talk with my mom at that time. And I'm not sure what Hampton was like, but Xavier was very wholesome. They checked in. They had resources. You know, we had everyone on campus, from the nuns to the president, would check in. And I got a funny story for you. One day, I was in statistics class, and it was a test, middle of a test, and I looked up and I looked at the door, and my president, Dr. Norman C. Francis, was standing there, and he was standing there with Lou Rawls. Mr. Lou Rawls, rest in peace. And I grew up, my mother listened to R&B, and everybody knows Lou Rawls was heavy in UNCF, and I was one of the recipients of a UNCF scholarship.
Gotcha.
He's standing there at the door.
Wow.
So I get ready to hop up out my seat, and my teacher is looking at me like, you're going to fail your test if you get up out the seat and leave the class. And I said, all right. I go out in the hallway, and I start talking to Mr. Lou Rawls and saying how much I love your music and how my mother loves you and how you look like my dad a little bit. Anyway, Norman C. says, that's awesome, son, but remember what you came here for.
That's right. Wow.
So get back in there and get in that seat.
Get your hips back in that desk.
Yes.
Right.
So that's amazing. I wanted to tell everybody that's on the call that joined. We're talking to Mrs. Elisa BUCKNER, who's the founder and CEO of Access to Admissions. He's a college admissions coach expert. So if you have family and friends that you think need to be a part of this conversation, click the button at the bottom of your screen, the arrow, send it to them. Text them, whatever you need to do to get them on the call, because this information that she's sharing is priceless. So we'll move on to our next question. Ideally, for a parent who has a child who maybe that child one day wants to go to college, when do you think that parent starts planning, and what does the planning look like at different stages of the life of the child?
Well, Kofi, my motto is that it's never too early to start the college admission process, and it's also never too late. So, my sons, they're 9 and 8 years old, but I can tell you that their first college tour, I wish I could say it was Hampton, but it was at Howard University. They toured Howard University when we were there, and I believe Malachi was being pushed in his stroller, and Elias was walking. but I guess my point really is that it's never too early to start having conversation about college. And something that um, many of us do is we take road trips, or maybe we take flights to places. What colleges are in the area on when you're taking those vacations that you can just travel by, even if it's not a formal visit, but that you can tour and look at, especially, with there's so much history tied to our HBCUs. I just think there's so much that young people can learn. All young people can learn about our American history, the educational system, and all of that by touring and seeing some of these amazing historical sites. So I think that the conversation starts as early as you can, just having conversations, sharing your own experiences, and then even finding people in your network or your family that can share those experiences. We typically, as a business, start with 8th grade for private college coaching and academic coaching, and then 7th grade if we work with a school. So there's 2 schools that we work with, and we start with 7th grade, and that's really just career exploration, talking about the things that set them up for a successful year. I always tell students there's really not 4 years of high school, there's 3, because by the time we're applying to college, it's the fall semester of your senior year. And, all of my students that have gotten into most of their top schools, we were only sending grades through their junior year. They didn't see senior year grades. Some of them will ask for senior year grades, so it's not that senior year is for naught. But with that in mind, unfortunately, the competition starts really early. So 7th and 8th grade, if you have a student that can take higher level math or even high school math, if you have a student that's really interested in STEM and you're already seeing that engagement with STEM type of excitement, then they should be in high school science and high school math by 8th grade for sure. But it can also start in 7th grade. I've had a 14-year-old complete almost his full year of dual enrollment in college level classes, right? So there are things that you can do in your state that you need to look in, but you have to advocate at your schools for what's available for students to take, because it may not be available during the school year, but it may be available in the summer, and just giving your students that exposure. But if you kind of only have 3 years to make it happen, it's almost impossible to get to those high level courses unless you start before high school. I don't love this part about my work because it is extremely competitive, but it is the reality.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a lot of pressure too on family
It can be, for sure. Mm-hmm.
Siobhan said, agree, building the pipeline starts early, most definitely. So one thing I wanted to know is, have you taken the boys, Elias and Malachi, to Hampton yet?
Absolutely. They
Okay.
have been to Hampton. They
Okay.
know. Yes, they absolutely know. Yeah, we had to make sure that they have been to a Hampton homecoming experience. Thankfully, it was the one right before COVID. And so the whole family has gone and they have seen the real HU for sure.
Oh, okay. Next question. I'm not gonna go out there because I know how HU gets down. Let's discuss money. I'm gonna go out and jump on a limb and say that free money in the form of grants and scholarships is the best way to pay for college. But I wanted to know, do you find that there's some best resources that you can recommend and tell us about for families to go about finding those funds?
Yeah, so kind of hands down, the students typically are going to get the most money directly from the college. People don't realize that there are a lot of private scholarships that students can and should apply for. But absolutely, the majority of the money that you're going to get is from the college. So why is that important? So that says that if you know that the median acceptance rate for students is a 3.5, and I'm just saying random numbers, and a 22 on the ACT, well, your student needs to be above that mark to get some of those academic or merit, what we call merit scholarships, directly from the college. But something else that I want to challenge families on is kind of understanding the different types of schools that there are. Typically, students know, especially our students that are aware of athletics, You know, we find out about new schools, you know, from the Final Four and all of that kind of stuff. But there's some really great liberal arts schools that have a lot of money. There are some small liberal arts schools that have more money per student in their endowment and available for students of color, for low-income students, for merit-based aid than even Harvard. If you
Mm.
really look at the endowment of how many students they accept into their class and availability. So if there's probably the most overlooked schools, it would be your liberal arts school. So a great resource that I like is ctcl.org. And I can put that in the chat or someone else can, but it's Colleges That Change Lives. It's ctcl.org. That is just saying, expand your mind about the types of schools that your students are adding to their list. Yes, we like the big schools, but we definitely want to look at some of those liberal arts schools because they have some of that funding and money to get you out there and to even fly parents out to help see it. You know, there's just, it's available. The other thing that I would challenge families on is that most states rather have exchange services. So in Georgia, there are several states, North Carolina is with it, Alabama. There's different states that have a student exchange program where you can get state tuition for schools outside of in surrounding areas outside of your state because they have an agreement with this
Mm.
school. So a lot of times parents will tell me, well, I told them, you know, my son or daughter or my student can only go to a state school. Well, guess what? They are considered a state school, if a state student, if they go to Clemson for a particular major and they're a resident of Georgia, but you have to look up what those majors are and what those options are. So there's student exchanges that really in every region of the country, and there's usually about 7 to 10 states that are in that one agreement, depending on the region. And so those are things you want to look into as well, because that's an easy way to cut down a lot on tuition with those student exchange programs.
That's great information. And I believe I dropped it in the chat. Ctcl.org. Did I capture that correctly?
Yes. Perfect.
All right. Yeah. And I didn't know anything about these exchange programs that they have. This is
Yes.
amazing. Okay. What about loans? Do you have a philosophy on loans and considerations that you coach families on when deciding?
Yes. So loans are the devil. No, I do not think that loans are the devil, actually. I do think that they can be shackles and that they are, you know, I share this all the time. Like my husband has tons of loans from undergraduate and graduate. He has his MDiv, but at the same time, it's what he needed to do. Um, I usually don't recommend loans above what you would pay for a car. So, you know, loans aren't a bad thing. We have loans for mortgage on our home. We have loans for cars. We have loans for things that we consider important and necessities. I do think education is a necessity. And so I think loans can be an opportunity for students to get somewhere that they need to go. But I don't think that we should come out of college with $100,000, undergraduate with $100,000 in loans. I do not. So not a house loan, more like under a car loan. So if you think about that, that's $5,000 to $10,000 a year for 4 years. But the other thing that goes into that conversation, and you know, I had a student that I felt like I wanted to pay to go around the country. We were looking at her list last week. It was a student in Massachusetts, and I was asking her why she was choosing one school over the other. And she pulled out the stats. She said, "You told us to look at the retention rate." And I was like, "Okay, what is it?" And so one school had given her more money, but their retention rate for students of color was 20%. What that means that in 6 years, students would graduate at about a 20% rate for students of color. And this was a female student of color. Was Black and Latino. And so the other school had a 75% graduation rate and retention from freshman year to sophomore year. which school are you more likely to graduate from in 4 years? And which one would you rather put your loan on? Because I think the worst situation that we have is we get a student into college, we get them in, they take out a
Mhm.
loan and they don't graduate and they have loan debt. That's the worst situation that we could be in. That's worse than a student that never goes to college and doesn't have any debt. And so we have to make informed decisions about the schools. We're not just looking at the pretty brochures and if they gave us a flag to hang in our room or a t-shirt. What are they doing? How are they supporting? And how are they graduating students? And are you going to get out in 4 years? Now, at Georgia Tech, for instance, it's common for students to get out in 5 years, but I feel like they give financial packages that take that into consideration. And so you need to ask those hard questions. We're not just asking, do you have students of diversity on your campus, but how are you supporting them financially? How are you supporting them to graduate in 4 years? Because we definitely don't want to have $100,000 graduate loans, and we're not even graduated in 6 years, and the number is still climbing. That's too much, and I would never advise that.
Uh, Amen to that. Yeah, a car. You're saying you recommend don't take out loans that are greater than the cost of a car. I think that's amazing.
I think that's too much. Yeah, if it's more than a car. I mean, I feel like we're comfortable taking out a loan for a car. We might take a loan for 20,000, 30,000, and some cars cost 50 over, I don't know. I haven't bought a new car and I don't know how long, but I know that we shouldn't be paying $100,000 in loans for an undergraduate degree when you could go to your state school and live at home and get a degree as well. I just wouldn't say that it's worth it. And I've debated and I've changed over the years because I have friends that say hands down HBCU. It doesn't matter how much it costs. They gotta go, and I just don't agree that $100,000 in debt is the way to go, regardless of the school.
Yeah, and especially with so much uncertainty in the economy, young learners or graduates are coming out and they don't know if they're going to have a job sometimes, and where that will be and what it's going to pay, and it's just a lot to strap uh, graduates with a degree, all these loans, and no guarantee of a job that will allow them to pay those loans back. So
That's right. Siobhan, thank you. Yes, the return on the ROI. And that's really like a good point too. And we have to ask the hard questions. Are you the only child? Is there another sibling coming right behind you that your parents are going to have to support for college? What are you going to need to go to medical school, graduate school afterwards in order to make a living wage, better than a living wage, right? What are those things going to be? So
all right, so college can be stressful and rewarding. What advice do you have for the student that's seeking to experience or fully immerse themselves in the college life, their friends and their tribe, but also make sure that they get their work done?
right. Yeah. So I made some of those mistakes. So, I mean, college is about finding yourself and about exploring. It's a lot of times your first time having an independent life, if you will. And so, college is for the mature student. You've got to be mature when you are making decisions, and I think that it really is the first part of adulting. We kind of think that adulting 101 happens after you graduate from college, and I can understand that, but it's really adulting. If we could say, like, the precursor to adulting is that independence in college and making the right decisions at that time. Students that don't find their tribe and don't engage and don't find their people, they struggle mentally, and you're struggling. They struggle with belonging and being there. And so, but you have to make an effort. I think sometimes that's a mistake when students that do stay at home, when they stay at home and they travel into school, that it's easier to not engage in clubs and activities and to kind of like remain disconnected from the college. And that worries me a bit. I think that part of the college experience is networking, getting involved, building your community outside of your family. And so that's definitely something that can be tragic. And, you know, I have some students that struggle, push through, and they make it. And then some students that struggle and they quit, you know, and I don't really know what that difference in that resilience is. I've had students on full tuition scholarships that have quit. And
Mm.
so, you know, that's something I'm still really exploring and trying to understand about what's happening on our college campuses and what's happening with that, the idea of sticking to it. It's hard for me to understand because I don't really give up on much. So, but you know, I'm trying. I mean, and things have been very different in the last 2 years with the pandemic, and so you know, there's a lot of uncertainties, and so things have been different. But for sure, you know, I think that it's a joyful experience. College was fun for me, and so I want it to be fun and enjoyable for others. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. So, do for families out there, everyone that might want your resources before they're able to come into contact with you and access it to admission, I wanted to know if you could recommend some books or audio resources or podcasts or anything that would help the family that are entering into the stage of college planning.
Okay, yeah, sure. So I probably have some right here. Yes, I think I do. Um, so the college essay essentials. This is Ethan Sawyer. He has a website, College Essay Guy. I use, if you just Google College Essay Guy and go to his website, this is not his, I think this is his first, this is either his first book or his second book. I think he's had 2 or 3 more books, but I use a lot of these resources with my students with their essay writing. He does have some free materials, so you can look at that. He seems to be very giving. So College Essay Guy is for sure a great one. I definitely think that the biggest bang for your buck, if you are gonna, is I will tell hands down is going to be test prep. Even though the ship is turning a little bit on the requirements for testing, it's still going to be the best investment that you can give right now is for your students to have higher test scores. We did get a few wins with students that didn't submit test scores for schools that were allowing that to happen. But it's still a very real part of the process. It's not gone away. So if you were going to invest in something, I would say test prep, hands down. That College That Changed Lives website, I definitely like the app. It's I see they're $2.75. It may have gone up to $3, but My Scholly, MySchoolly. When I first started my business, I used to charge families for finding scholarships for them, and I would find out what's going on with their student, everything they're interested in, and I would send them a list of scholarships. Well, now My Scholly is so easy. It comes to the students. They can download it on their app. They can track different scholarships. Going Merry is another one that I like. Going, MERRY. That's another scholarship search.
Somebody put
But
those in the comments.
I'm sorry?
I said somebody put those in the comments. We gotta capture this stuff right here. You said, what is it called again? Oh, we froze. Elisa, are you still there? It's cycling. Thank you. Goingmerry.com. Thank you. We'll see if we can get Elisa back on. It's frozen, but she was just sharing some resources to college admission. It looks like she's coming back in. Thank you, Demetria. Everybody, Vantage Point Coaching is helping out. Can we? That's right. The loan companies are sabotaging this live. I can see her in here. It says that she requested to join. I'm pressing the button, but it's not doing anything. So we'll see if she can get back in. In the meantime, let's try again. Okay, I think she's gonna be able to come in now. There we go.
Okay, sorry about that, guys. I don't know what happened.
I don't know either, but
I could hear you all, but
Siobhan said it was the loan companies that were sabotaging this live.
probably.
Yeah, while you were gone, the tribe was dropping all of the URLs for those.
Yes, they all looked right. Thank you for that. I'm not going to touch anything because I might mess something up.
No, you're making everything better right now. So let's go ahead and switch gears. I wanted to know if you have a favorite Ohini product.
So I like anything that my husband likes because if he's fresh and clean, then I like it. So the favorite that I believe he has had an opportunity to try and even share with others is the African black soap. So, you know, that's the one we're gonna go with.
Yeah, and he's always fresh and clean. That's my younger cousin, but I've always looked up to him and his style. Don't tell him no.
Okay, I won't tell him.
All right. So we always end our check-ins with, something fun to lighten the mood, depending on what the conversation was. We just want to always end on a good note. Wanted to know if you had maybe a minute for a lightning round. I say some statements or, a word, and you come back with whatever comes to mind.
Sounds good. Let's go.
All right. Okay.
Don't
Best.
be too hard on me.
Nah, no, you went to Hampton, so you good, right? All right. Best ice cream.
Oh, mint chocolate chip and chocolate peanut butter together.
Okay. All right. Audiobooks or page turning?
Audio books and page turning both.
Boom. Same way. Early riser or nighttime warrior?
Early riser all day. 4 a.m. I can get up and knock it out, but 8:30 I'm tired.
Okay. Wow. That's amazing. Motherhood.
What the oh woo, that's my response.
Amen to that. All right. Your afternoon just got freed up. How are you spending your time?
You know what? That is my reality today because normally we have soccer games all over Georgia, and I just feel like God just blessed me with a day of no soccer because it's spring break. So I'm actually going to be working on some spring cleaning around the house and working on some things for work and relaxing with the boys. So,
Cool. All right, next one. Prayer.
oh, I need it all the time, and it's not as it doesn't have to be as formal as you think.
Yeah. We talk about that some more. What does HU mean?
You mean my HU, Hampton University?
It's your answer. What does
it
HU mean?
it means the best and the brightest. It means success. It means it needs to be on your college list.
Oh, awesome. All right. Favorite book or author?
Ooh, that's a good one. Oh my gosh, I'm reading all the time. My favorite book, or I would have to say, growing up, I think, I read a lot of Zora Neale Hurston, and so that is my favorite.
Okay. All right. Cash or credit?
Cash is queen.
All right. When do you feel most alive?
Laughing with my family.
Okay. Cookout or movie night?
Cookout, but I don't want to be on the grill.
Okay. Love. Love.
Gotta have it all the time. Gotta give it, gotta have it.
Yeah, you gotta have it. Love that. All right. Last one. God.
Um, he's amazing.
All right. This is beautiful. I really appreciate you for taking time to check in with the Ohini village, the tribe. Where do people find you online, or perhaps get on your wait list if you have a wait list? And do you have any, any type of classes or any type of
Yeah.
events coming up?
Oh, well, no events necessarily coming up. Well, maybe. So I have a colleague, we do something called Knowledge for College together. And so we have a membership. It's $25 a month. You can go to my website, access to admissions, the number 2.com, and you can sign up to be a member. It's you would be a part of the Facebook group, and we hold monthly seminars for students and parents. So that's what I meant by coming up in that way. And then also, if you want to have a private session, I have private coaches that help clients, and you can have you can most certainly have a free, like 30-minute success session with me or with my coach if that's something that you want to do. And again, you can go to the website and sign up for all of that stuff. Or you can go to my Instagram page and DM me at Access to Admission, and be happy to help and support.
Awesome, awesome. Well, we want to wish you, love and afternoons that are freed up, and all the abundance that you deserve in this life. Thank you again for checking up. Let me see. There's a question that just popped up. What age kids should start, or parents should start?
Yeah. So for the Knowledge for College, we have had 7th and 8th graders start in there. For the private coaching, it's usually not before 9th grade.
Okay. All right. Well, everybody, make sure you go follow Elisa, follow her at Access to number 2 Admission
Admission.
here on Instagram, and make sure you follow her on Facebook too.
Sure.
And she has beautiful pictures and so many knowledgeable posts. And I just love when I get to see Xavier University in the background too. It's, the most illustrious. Anyway, the before we sign off, I just want to let everyone know that we have a very big announcement coming out for Ohini. So if you are on our newsletter, the email newsletter, make sure you go sign up. If you don't know how to find it, go to our website, go down to the bottom and sign up, because the announcement is going to be big. And if you want to be the first one to know, make sure you are signed up. You might even need to add us to your contacts as well. But this has been great, Elisa. Thank you again.
Thank
So
you.
taking time, and blessings. Thank you.
Thank you, and bless you. Thanks. Have a good weekend.
You too. Bye.